Now, in the early days of the war, African Americans that came under the control of the Union were either freed or they were put to work by Union forces. In 1862, Lincoln forms a plan to free all the slaves, but he needed a military victory. After Antietam, Lincoln has that victory when he issues the Emancipation Proclamation, which frees slaves in the states that are in rebellion. Make sure you know that because it does not free slaves in the border states. And if you want to know more about the Emancipation Proclamation, there you go. And there you go again. So this is an Emancipation Proclamation video, if you didn't already know. After the Emancipation Proclamation, African Americans joined the Army with the 54th Mass, being the first African American regiment. The 54th Mass faced prejudice, menial tasks, the longest guard duty, and they were placed in exposed positions. And it took time for them to get equality. If you've ever seen the movie Glory is about the 54th Mass. Now, slaves in the South aided the Union Army by giving them food from plantations, helping them as spies, and they even formed their own regiments that they called contraband regiments. You want to see a clip from Glory? Boom! And if you learn more about the 54th Mass, boom! Now, life in the North after the war had some issues, and then they had some successes. So the textile industry struggled because of the loss of cotton after the war. The government during the war. This is during the war. Sorry, not after. This is during the war, sorry, not after the war. What am I thinking? So the textile industry in the North struggled during the war because of the loss of cotton. This is life in the North. The government introduced an income tax to pay for supplies and pay for the war. The government also raised tariffs to bring in income. They sold bonds for money, which are basically you're giving the government a loan. And the war actually allowed Congress to pass the Railroad Expansion Act that was caught in the slavery battle before the war. They instituted a draft in places like New York City that caused riots. And Lincoln actually suspends certain rights, such as habeas corpus, which allowed Lincoln to hold people without a charge in jail. So he could actually put people in jail without being charged. Now, life in the South during the war. The South tried everything to pay for the war, including seizing all supplies, even off the dead, using blockade-running ships, building new ironworks. The government actually tries to issue money, but many doubted the value of it, and so it caused inflation. Food shortages in the South also caused riots. Life of a soldier during the war. Now, the war gave many soldiers their first taste of travel. And a lot of the soldiers filled their free time in between battles with cards, letters, and religion. Religious revivals were a big part of wartime camps. And a lot of these people could be fighting against family members. There were family members on both sides. New war technology meant more death and worse wounds. And then when you got wounded, really the treatment for most of it was, let's cut it off, let's amputate. And infections were very prevalent. Poor drinking water and sanitation led to disease. And if captured, you faced a really bad place. You faced overcrowded prisons with little food that you did not want to go to, like Andersonville. If the South can't feed their own people, they're not going to feed their prisoners. Now, women during the war. Women took over the farms, businesses, and plantations. You have some who masquerade as women and they want to fight, or masquerade as soldiers and they want to fight. They helped in camps with cooking and laundry, and they were nurses. And the nurses gained some influence with Clara Barton and traveling ambulances. Lincoln actually forms a nurses' commission because of it. Now, the impact of Lincoln's death. It united all the Northerners who saw Lincoln as a hero and a symbol of freedom. And it also deprived the nation of a strong leader in a time of crisis. And so why the North won? One, the North had greater technology. They had greater resources. They developed leaders like Grant and Sherman. The South used up all their resources and could not replace them. The South was not able to gain an ally. The North had steady leadership like Lincoln. And another reason they won is the South lost most of their military leaders like Jackson and Stuart, some of their best military leaders.